same WWE feuds. They took it outside the ring. This is personal beef. What they call heat.
One of the things people love about WWE wrestling is the drama that surrounds a lot of the fights. Of course, a good portion of it is scripted, but with all the testosterone, competition, and money involved, some feuds continue after the fights end. These are the craziest feuds in WWE that went beyond the ring. First up on our list is the feud between Booker T and Batista, more commonly known as Dave Batista. This feud escalated outside the ring in 2006. Their feud occurred during the photo shoot for the WWE SummerSlam. Trash talk escalated until the two took the fight to an empty room. The comment that did it was Booker telling the other wrestler not to cross him, or he'd have to deal with fast hands. According to other sources, the feud was a result of Batista's perceived ungratefulness about his success in the league. At the peak of his career, the wrestler was one of the more popular WWE superstars. Previously, he was known as Leviathan in the OVW. When he debuted on the main roster,
he was huge back then.
Let success get to his head. One of the people who thought that was Booker T. Multiple accounts of the fight report that Booker T won, which made sense as he had a background in street fighting. Batista was left with cuts and scrapes from the brawl. Booker T was left with a swollen eye. As time went on, different accounts of the event emerged, each saying a different person came out on top. Eventually, Booker T, known as King Booker at that point, dropped the World Championship to Batista. After that, the former wrestler said he would never be friends with Batista, acknowledging that he at least respected him. That eventually changed. More recently, Booker T spoke on the incident in an interview, mentioning that the two buried the hatchet. Batista moved on from the event, eventually shifting to a career in acting. Had that gone further, who knows if he would still be playing characters like Drax today. The next big brawl happened in 1990 between Ken Shamrock and the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags.
That was bad.
At the time, Ken Shamrock was an intimidating figure in the league, eventually going on to have a legitimate MMA career. Drama ensued outside the ring while everyone was in a small-time promotion. That was the South Atlantic Pro Wrestling in the Carolinas. Everyone involved was at a bar called Funk Crazies. The Nasty Boys got heavily intoxicated and lived up to their nickname, making inappropriate comments towards one of Shamrock's female friends. That went even further when one of them tried to grope her. Bouncers intervened before anything happened at the bar. The MMA fighter later went to confront them outside the ring, at the hotel they were staying in. He kicked down the door to teach them a lesson. Shamrock eventually lost the fight because of his number disadvantage. Additionally, he took a hit to the back of the head with a phone, and the tag team capitalized on that. Shamrock said that the two kicked him with steel-toe boots. The fighter suffered a broken sternum and nose.
They had steel-toe boots that cracked my sternum, broke my nose, pretty much almost killed me.
Shortly after the situation calmed down, the Nasty Boys don't recall the incident, but nearly killed Ken.
Don't recall?
There were no repercussions for anyone involved. Sags and Knobbs went on to the WWF. Shamrock recovered and went on with his career. They would eventually bump into each other again at an airport, nearly getting into another brawl. Since then, Shamrock has spoken negatively about the Nasty Boys and vice versa.
It was the way that it was done and what had happened afterwards and the thoughts that went in afterwards. That, to me, put me in a position to where I wanted to put them in a grave. I wanted to beat them silly.
Still, it was bold of the wrestler to try taking on two opponents at once for his friend. Do you think he could ever do that? The third crazy WWE feud occurred between Sid Vicious and Arn Anderson back in 1993.
Oh, I heard about that
Although
too.
This was back in the
A
days
knife
of
or
the
scissors or
WCW,
something.
The championship was eventually acquired by the WWF, which became the WWE. Both fighters were known as tough figures in wrestling at the time. Their feud came to a head during a UK tour in Blackburn. It may not be surprising to hear that alcohol was involved in this altercation as well. Plenty of beers, a lack of sleep, and tension from long hours on the road built up into a painful altercation. During the ride back to the hotel, Vicious taunted Anderson, telling the wrestler that he and Ric Flair needed to retire. Anderson took it up a notch by throwing a drink over Sid. Things escalated when they got to the hotel. They were separated and returned to their hotel rooms. Eventually, Sid decided to pay Anderson a visit, and their brawl escalated significantly. Allegedly, when Anderson answered the door, Sid hit him over the head with a chair leg. The fight was then taken into the hallway. Sid Vicious got a hold of a pair of scissors. According to Vicious, Arn used them as a weapon, and that was how he got them. He then stabbed his opponent with them. Anderson passed out while screaming from the altercation. A result of being stabbed with 20 wounds to the chest and stomach, Sid suffered 4 stab wounds. The incident gained national attention in the UK,
I heard
leading
2 or 3 stories about
fire
that.
Sid Vicious. Vicious apologized to Anderson, and the two were on better terms after that.
I just wish it never had happened, and if it had to happen, I wish it hadn't been with him.
Another crazy fight was one that happened between Big Show, also known as Paul White, and the Great Khali. It was one of the biggest fights outside the league given their stature. Why did the two giants fight? Apparently, White felt some jealousy over Khali's entrance into the WWE in 2006. He thought that the new contender took away some of his popularity because he was another giant. This was exacerbated when Khali used Big Show's famous chop move. This occurred during a show in Puerto Rico. The two were actually tag team partners. The Great Khali silenced the crowd and then delivered a loud chop to his opponent's chest. Big Show took offense to the display, thinking that the Great Khali was deliberately trying to steal his fans with one of his signature moves. That led to an altercation between the two backstage in the dressing room. At first, Khali thought the fight was a joke or stunt. It wasn't until Big Show punched him in the jaw that he fought back. Other wrestlers in the room watched the two, interested in seeing what would happen between the two giants. What ended the huge wrestlers' brawl? According to accounts, it saw an anticlimactic end because of a chair. Big Show tried to swing for Khali's head and tripped over a chair. When he was on the ground, the native Indian wrestler dropped on top of him, ending the fight. Khali was declared the winner, and Big Show was forced to apologize for throwing the first punch. Khali accepted the apology, and things settled down between the two wrestlers. Could you imagine having to come in between those two wrestlers?
You break that up if you want to.
One of the greatest feuds in WWE. This was a dangerous altercation between Mr. Perfect, whose real name is Kurt Hennig, and Brock Lesnar. The two had solid
Not talking about the airplane thing, are they? I heard about that too.
Angle with the best. Lesnar's amateur record spoke for itself, and he eventually did go on to compete in MMA. The WWE retired Hennig, and his most recent performance won him a lot of praise. The feud between the two took an absolutely crazy turn on a flight from a European tour back to the US. Mr. Perfect claimed that he was the better wrestler between the two. The Beast didn't like that comment. He attacked the other wrestler and started an all-out brawl on the plane. That would later be referred to as the plane ride from hell. According to reports,
a lot of stuff happened on that plane.
Open the plane door, which would have really caused issues. It is absolutely crazy how reckless they were, potentially causing a plane crash with their beef. Triple H was eventually able to split them up, and the situation was resolved. Mr. Perfect was fired not long after that, cutting his return to the WWE short. There you have it. Whether it's backstage in a hotel or on a plane, WWE wrestlers are willing to go at it when the beef follows them outside the ring. For some of these wrestlers, it cost them their careers. For others, these feuds nearly cost them their lives. That's what happens when crazy WWE feuds go beyond the ring.
Yeah, I know about some of those. Hennig and Lesnar, boy, they go both shoot wrestlers, so and the Booker T and Batista thing. I heard about that a couple of times, boy. It said, because who was talking about that? Another wrestler, Fernandez, was talking about. They said Booker T tore his ass up, boy. And you could tell, and sometimes even though you don't know the people personally, you could tell when somebody stopped playing, like Booker T or his brother. Ain't nothing to mess with. And then what else was on there? The Strowman thing. I remember that because I watched the wrestling and I'm like for certain people, and Lesnar hit that man in his head, not his head, side of the temple, slowed the fuck down. Ooh boy, how he still got up and was walking. Yeah, people think they're all buddies and stuff in there. Everybody ain't buddies. Everybody ain't friends, friendly.